Hi everyone. Sorry for, not posting anything for a while. But Basit has been really busy with his schoolwork. In fact, he promised to edit a video and it still hasn't been uploaded. But I don't blame him. We all know that, it's difficult to be in school. But I decided that, to kind of keep things going, I'll have my own private corner where I tell you my own thoughts about movies that I guess I watch. And some of those might even be with friends, but it'll be fun, right? Alright, so today let's talk about a movie that I'm probably gonna get a lot of hate for with my review. Pushpa! So Pushpa is a film made in 2020. It's a Telugu movie. And I'm sure a lot of us have heard a lot about. And I was extremely interested in this film because it stars an actor that I really like, Allu Arjun, and also Fahd Fazil, whom we all know that I absolutely adore. This movie was written and directed by Sukumar, and I haven't seen much from him, but nevertheless, the actors are a reason definitely to watch this movie. I sat down and watched this film with a friend actually, and the two of us, we were just like, oh, it's a film that a lot of people have talked a lot about, so why don't we watch it? And we were like expecting it to be at least somewhat decent, just if anything, a standard Indian masala movie. But this movie is absolutely horrible, and I felt so awful after watching this film. And we actually sat down after this and watched like random YouTube videos of like compilations of just completely baseless humor, because at the very least it made us feel better than whatever trash fire we were sitting and watching before this. Before I start this review, I want to say that I have problems with almost every aspect of this film, but obviously the primary thing that annoys me the most is the story. Given that this is obviously a film that was probably intended to be more about the cool factor, I say that I can't get behind that because I dislike the main character, and as a result, I'm going to nitpick the story. But I'll come down to the technical aspects and the failures of the other aspects, of this film as we progress. But let's start with how absolutely awful the story is. Alright, so we start the film with Pushpa trying to bribe some Tamil Nadu policemen, and he does this in an interesting way because he fights them and then keeps offering, higher amounts of money for his bribe. And it's pretty cool, and I like it, and these kind of movies are definitely like my general guilty pleasures. I love watching these kind of movies when I'm feeling down, and I was like, oh, okay, so this is gonna be an excitable movie. And then we see the credits, and I realize what an absolute dumpster fire we're in for. So the film starts, alright, with this horrible animation that I am going to refrain from talking about because I'm going to wait until the technical aspects of this movie, that have a very awful narrator who I'm also going to avoid talking about till we get to the technical aspects of this movie. But they both set the tone for absolutely how horrible this movie is gonna be, alright? It's so painfully boring, and I was like, oh no, we started on such a high note, and now we're just going into, this feeling of dread. No, alright? No. Everything about this is just no. But let's ignore that and move on to the part after the opening credits. Which is also really bad because it has so many plot holes. I don't understand. Let's start with plot hole number 1, alright? The film moves on to us seeing Pushpa being like a security guard or some laborer in a mill. And he then gets, called out for not respecting his boss. And again, I was like, oh, okay, he's responding to this in a positive way, in the sense, positive for him, because he's like, oh, I give respect to the people who earn my respect. And I was like, oh, okay, that's a very important message for considering workers' rights and the problems that we're facing right now with that. But he then proceeds to leave, and that's when this goes completely off the rails. So any rational person at this point would think, oh, okay, so supposing they're making a statement about cool, like a good statement about worker rights, the next part of this should be, actually implementing that. But how they implement this is awful. So they have another person on screen while he says this and leaves, and that guy just walks off along with him. He's like, I also quit, and he goes. And it's like, wait, if you wanted to do this for worker rights, all right, maybe you need to have more number of people quitting, because then it actually has value, value. Otherwise, it makes no sense. It's also a very flimsy setup for like the comedic relief in this movie. And I use that term very deliberately because the comedy in this movie is awful, but let's get to that later, all right? And then, after this happens, it suddenly cuts to him getting yelled at by a loan shark for not repaying his loan. Now, at this point, you might be thinking, oh, that didn't have anything to do with the last three scenes, because if suppose you can count the opening credits. And I guess, yeah, this film initially is not told linearly. And I was like, oh, okay, fine, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with not having a linear plot to your film. A lot of stories do that. The problem is that from this point forward, it's more or less told linearly. So you're very confused because it's like you started without that and now you're moving on to like a linear plot. So it's like kind of confusing at that point. But I guess I have to do exactly what the movie did for this review because I don't know how to address this. So I'm just not going to. And I'm gonna switch to the actual linear part of this story. So let's go back to this guy, getting angry because he's reasonably upset that he's not got his money back. Alright. Then Pushpa pays the loan back by selling a bull that his family has. And I was like, oh, okay, so I guess that wasn't a completely useless thing. But then he proceeds to beat up the loan shark because he was reasonably upset that Pushpa was, late on his loan. I was like, okay, so you're setting up this guy to be an awful person. What the... Already, I hate this person. So, great start to the movie. 15 minutes in, and I already hate the main character. So, we've set all this up, and now I guess we get to the actual plot of the film. Because of how badly paced this movie is, we've waited for only, I think, like 15 minutes, but it already feels like an hour has passed. But let's ignore that and start with the next part. So as set up by our brilliant narrator, who was not on Quaaludes for sure, we hear that basically this man, Pushpa, is making his money by selling a very special protected kind of sandalwood, like smuggling it overseas for a lot of money. And I guess the point of the next shot where he like pretends to not be selling this wood or not be cutting these trees down, and the police guy comes in and he's like, oh, you're not supposed to be selling these trees. And I was like, okay, so I guess the point of this is to show us how badly the police officers are treating everyone, and therefore we should hate them. But the problem with that approach is essentially that you haven't shown anything good for our main character, which means I can't dislike the way the cops are treating him because I don't like him and they're the de facto good ones. So if both sides are bad, I'm going to lean towards the people who are actually in the right here, which is the policemen, because they're trying to protect a forest that is endangered. So you see the problem here, right? I can't feel bad for the main character. I can't feel bad for the way he's being treated by the cops either, because they're actually doing the good thing. Now, you might be like, wait a minute, you like movies like Goodfellas and you like mob boss type films. So how is that fair compared to this? The reason that it is because personally, those films do a good job of actually showing a multifaceted part of that relationship. Not just that, they also are very clear in showing that these people are bad guys. Like movies like The Godfather, Goodfellas, any of these films, they don't pretend like you being a bad person is a good thing. It is about the complexities of being that kind of a person who enjoys violence and who's part of this crime syndicate, but at the same time is also has a family and, you know, is struggling to help them and is still a person, you know, with other characteristics. Pushpa doesn't have any of that. His only goal in life is to become the head of a crime syndicate, and he doesn't really have much of a motivation beyond that, or like any characteristics outside of it which are, you know, at all likable, except maybe you could feel bad for him for having a bad childhood, but that's a very small aspect of it. He hasn't grown from that experience at all, and you can't end up feeling sorry for him just because of a 30-second flashback of him, you know, getting bullied by another guy. It's not going to help any of us feel better about this character. Essentially, it's a very simple request that I'm making to this film. Just show me why I should care about Pushpa. Alright? No amount of your stupid editing or your idiotic, oh, he's, you know, a guy with attitude is going to make me like this character just because, oh, he's the main character. That's not how it works. You need to tell me why I like him. You understand? Now, are you ready for the worst tonal whiplash that you have ever seen in your entire life? Alright, I kid you not, this is the worst thing, right? They're doing all of this crime stuff, okay? They're bamboozling cops every day. Okay, fine, I guess if you like that kind of thing, well and good. Good job. You're doing that. Suddenly, the writer goes, wait a minute, how are we gonna sell this movie if we don't have a love interest? We need to insert some kind of a stupid girl into this plot so that, you know, she can be the love interest. But writer sir, that doesn't fit in all with the previous scene. We were just talking about Pushpa using his intelligence to hoodwink cops. No, we need a love interest. But sir, she has no personality and all she does is be a tool for Pushpa to become higher in this crime syndicate. Love interest! That's it. That's what happened. I'm telling you, that's what happened. Like, the editor must have just, like, completely been, like, you know, freaked out by the fact that the writer was screaming at him, and he was just like, okay, fine, please, no. Anyway, because of that, we have one of the worst stories that I have ever seen. Worst love stories of all time, alright? Even worse than Twilight, because at least Twilight is, like, a focal point of a love story. This one, it's not even a focal point. It's just there, and it's completely useless, alright? Let's start with this wonderful tale of love. Girl exists, alright? Man sees girl, instantly falls in love with her. Always the best setup for any love story. And yeah, I guess, okay, fine, a lot of Indian films do this. So let's give this a pass, alright? The next thing he does, which is equally asinine, alright? Which is, instead of, you know, doing something proactive, like talking to her or approaching her or anything that would actually make her notice him, he decides, oh no, I'm too scared, I'm just gonna creepily look at her for the next 30 minutes of the film and not do anything. Okay? So, anybody else getting scared by creepy man who stares at girls? Because that's always the best way to definitely make someone, you know, have interest in you. I would definitely be interested in a guy looking at me from across the street for like a continuous number of days at a time. I would not call the cops on him at all, for sure, no way. Then, after all of this, alright, they decide, oh, let's have some comedy inserted in here. So, you know, the height of comedy that they choose at this point, you know, to execute, they decide to pay this girl to look at him. You know, because obviously this man is very reasonably upset that the girl he's just been staring at for, I don't know, the past 30 minutes of the film hasn't noticed him back or, you know, reciprocated his advances because he has made no advances. They pay her to look at him. Okay, so I don't know how this is funny at all. And then after that, you know, after that scene where they pay her to look at him, they then pay her to kiss him. Okay, this is an amazing love story, right? for sure. Like, it's a very rational thing to expect the person you pay for reciprocation of advances, that person for sure is the person you fall in love with. Like, that's exactly how that works. It's not just a business transaction for sure. Moving on from that, she refuses to kiss him, which is a very reasonable reaction because, you can just choose not to do that. And then he has the gall to be upset at her after this. Why did you think she would say yes? That's really my biggest question. Why did you think she would say yes? All right, this woman has not spoken to you. This woman has maximum of like 5 dialogues. 3 of those have been like, since she was there, 3 of those have been how she's not interested in you and she only looked at you because they paid her real money. All right, and now she's realizing after all this that she doesn't want anything to do with you and doesn't want to kiss you. At this point, you decide, okay, fine, give me my money back and I stop, harassing you. But that was not the takeaway from this. Instead, they decided to make fun of this and make this into a comedic scene, which they bring back later, further down the story. And the way they bring that back is that he reasonably, instead of, reasonably being like, oh, okay, I guess I should back off from this girl who cried when I asked her to kiss me, his like brilliant comedic interest / supporting character decides to go, hey, why don't you get her married? Like, he goes up to her dad and he's like, hey, why don't you get your daughter married to Pushpa? After all, he's like clearly dancing with those item girls and talking business. He's definitely very accomplished man for sure. Why don't you? He's exactly the kind of guy I would want to get my daughter married to for sure. So just do it. Even though we're hiding the fact that this girl has run away from him and was not interested in him and sees him as a creepy man who stares at her for extended periods of time. Great decision, guys. That doesn't exist, obviously. I mean, why should the girl have any say in who she chooses as her life partner? It has to be decided for her by her parents. And also, that she doesn't like you, but you're just gonna go and tell her parents because it doesn't matter at all. You should just get the girl you want. Okay, after all of this, they bring back the fact that she didn't want to kiss him, making fun of it, saying, now you could have at least gotten money out of it before, now you have to do it for free. It's definitely very, very, very funny, especially when it's told by the stupid character who eats food all the time. That's her main characteristic. She out her best friend, mind you, it's not her best friend, her best friend, and then eats food because she's fat. That's the only joke she has. It's not funny. This was not funny since like 1990. It's not funny now. Stop it. I swear to God, this love story makes me insane because the next part of the story is even more insane than that. All right. So at this point, all right, Pushpa somehow discovers that the mob that he's part of, one of the boss's like brothers is a bad guy in quotes, because he apparently gets women from and just with them. This is bad if the brother does it, even though clearly we've seen the exact same analogy happen at Pushpa. Anyway, this scumbaggy man suddenly realizes that he got bought out, by the cops. Like their crime syndicate has been bought out by the cops, by Srivali's father, and he goes, oh, okay, time to get revenge, so I'm gonna try to his daughter, and instead of having some kind of a reasonable resolution, she goes to Pushpa and she says, oh, he told me to with him, but actually I loved you this whole time. I was so happy to be married to you. That's why I looked so sad and depressed during our so-called engagement, and I also ran away when you tried to kiss me. But I guess I could justify that with morals. Now I still want you to with me because I guess I have no morals suddenly, because obviously with you is better because you are the main character. Shut up. Seriously. Just stop talking. You make no sense. This movie makes no sense, and I hate both of you. Moving on, after this complete garbage rubbish, alright, he goes and beats up this bad guy, and who I guess, technically is bad. I mean, a spoiler alert, I think people who hire women from them are bad people, alright? Anyway, ignoring all of this, he beats up this guy and he gets the girl. Woohoo! I totally care about these people's relationship. All of this garbage. Let's move on to something that might actually remotely make sense to us, but oh no, is ruined by Pushpa's lack of self-awareness that it is a stupid movie. I'm sorry. I'm getting really, really angry talking about how horrible this movie is. And we haven't even gotten like halfway through the plot. There's still like 50% of this movie left. So let's just take a moment to realize how much of a hypocrite Pushpa is throughout this movie. So let's start from the beginning, alright? The first scene that he gets introduced to, he talks about how bosses don't deserve respect unless they actually do something good for their workers. Which is a fair point. I'm not going to deny that. That is actually a very fair decision and I completely agree with it. That said, his next stance after that is getting angry at a loan shark for being mad at him for not paying back his loans. Alright? And saying that he deserves respect even though this loan shark has essentially lost his money. Alright, or basically was thinking that he was never going to get his money back. How is that fair? He demands that he will only shell out respect to those who deserve his respect, but when somebody else does that to him, he's like, nah, you have to respect me because I'm the main character. Stupid, right? Point number 2, okay? This man is known for dancing with half-naked item ladies, paying women to kiss him, and for some reason the brother is the bad guy because he does the same thing and just goes one step further to them. No, these are the same thing. Both of you are not respecting women's. Both of you are objectifying women. You are both in the wrong here. Number 3, alright? He sucks. He is an awful person, alright? He's literally cutting down trees that are endangered, killing animal species to get money and get out of this rut and become like a big mob boss. There is nothing redeeming, and then he has the audacity to be mad at the police for trying to enforce the law? No, he doesn't get that right. He is doing something awful. He is an awful person, and he doesn't even have any validity that makes me like him at all outside of this, except maybe slightly feel sorry for him because of one 30-second flashback. Alright, and maybe the fact that his mom got beat up. All of this is terrible, and it's not even funny. Nothing is funny in this movie. So you can't even enjoy retroactively the humor. So at this point, you think that I should give up with this film, right? But no, I have to sit through this dumpster fire because honestly, I wanted to make a review for this and I had to tell you all how much I hate this movie. So let's go back to what garbage plot holes we're gonna see next. So after he beats up the brother for, hurting Shrivali's dad and almost hurting Shrivali, Pushpa gets caught by the brother of, or the mob boss basically, because he's like, oh, you beat up my brother. But that doesn't happen before we have a brilliant comedic scene from our brilliant comedic writer. Anyway, once we get past that and try to erase that terrible scene from our memory, we get to the point where you're like, oh, okay, so maybe this is the place where the movie winds down. because he's tied up, they're about to shoot him, and I guess, we don't care because he's a twat. But at this moment, a turf war breaks out. And I was like, oh, okay, so I guess the point of this is that, there's going to be a bloody war. Pushpa gets buried, everyone dies, the end of the roll credits. Our writer's lad didn't like that idea. Sir, he's blindfolded and tied up. He can't even see the number of bullets coming his way. No, he's the main character. They had to tie him up, badly. They didn't even tie his legs up, and his blindfolding was pretty terrible. But sir, they're mob leaders. This can't be their first execution. You showed them executing someone else. They need to know how to tie his legs up and blindfold him so he doesn't escape. He's the main character. He has to run away and escape. But sir, even if he somehow manages to run away from all that, there's a barrage of bullets coming his way. How can they all miss this fleeing blindfolded man? Main character! Alright, please just stop yelling. That was stupid. I don't know why I'm adding these, but I had to show my frustration some way, so I'm gonna personify the writer. After we see this brilliance from the writer, we get the biggest blunder of all blunders in terms of physics. This tied up man manages to run through a set of people who make stormtroopers look like, excellent marksmen, and then somehow manages to get a gun from one of them because I guess they're that incompetent. And then he holds a gun up to one of the men and he's like, get my wrists untied, I need to fight. And you're like, oh, okay, I guess that's somewhat of a decent plan. Maybe it's not that stupid if supposing you don't think about it for too long. Except this is the point where you're like, no, wait a minute, even a second grader should know this. There's another guy coming right at him, all right, with a knife in hand. The guy behind him is being held at gunpoint and is being threatened with, to cut this guy open. If supposing he waited for 2 seconds, the guy who was trying to untie him, if he waited for 2 seconds, he would have seen the other guy who's running at him directly, running at Pushpa directly, chop his head off, and they both would have won. Alright, Pushpa would have died at that spot. But for some stupid reason, this man doesn't see the crazy lunatic from his side yelling bloody murder right, coming right their way, ready to slice off Pushpa's head. What? He is a trained goon of a crime syndicate and he doesn't take the 2 seconds to look around Pushpa or just, open his ears to hear the crazy man yelling and running towards them? Are you insane? Do you think that we think that everybody in this world is an idiot? Because you are not making Pushpa look good by dealing with two people, at the same time. If supposing both the people you've dealt with are both idiots who don't understand the concept of working together. This is not how anything works. Anyway, he finally escapes and he makes big sweeping changes to the crime syndicate, and I guess he finally got what he wanted because he's the head of the crime syndicate now. Yay! Or rather he holds all the power or something. I don't give a Now this is the point where Fahd Fazil enters this movie, and I was like, oh, okay, I guess we might like this character. I like Fahd Fazil. I love his movies. He's one of those people who elevates movies, so you kind of feel good about the characters he plays, even if supposing it's in a film that's really awful. And this is the point where I think that I actually kind of started to find the film a little interesting, because I like the dynamic now between the main villain, who is Fahd Fazil, and the main character, who is Pushpa, played by Allu Arjun. I do like the SP and, mob boss dynamic. He's just a man who's corrupt. He doesn't really care about anything, but he wants respect. And the same logic works for Pushpa as well. He is a man who doesn't care about the environment or care about breaking the laws or anything. He just wants to, be respected for his position. So I kind of like the two sides of this aspect. One is a police officer and one is a crime boss, but at the end of the day, they're very similar in nature. That said, it's too little too late, You've reached the fag end of this film. It's you've had 2 hours of complete rubbish. If the film had started at this point, I might have actually liked it, because I like the dynamic that the main character and the main villain have. So maybe, you never know, I might end up liking the sequel at the process. But let's look at this film at this point. I like the power struggle that they have at this point. I even found the scene where he strips him to be like completely over the top ridiculous, but it was funny. It was funny in how bad it was, and that's the kind of thing I'm looking for. I'm not going to expect every film to be a quality, Schindler's List type film, but if you can give me enjoyment, I'm still going to be like, yeah, maybe you weren't the best movie in the world, but I liked you, and I liked that. That was not terrible. The issue is, again, that it doesn't make anything worth it at the end. So yeah, anyway, he strips the bad guy, and I guess he gets married because we cared about that love story, and then the SP shoots a dog and laughs. That's how the film ends. I don't know what to say about any of that, except, yeah, I liked that stuff. I wish I had more of something as insane as that in the rest of the movie. This movie is generally somewhat competent on this scale. And this is something I have to say about most Telugu movies. They are generally competent on the technical side of things. I will never disparage them for that. And this movie also has that very good Telugu charm of doing a good job in making things look cool. That said, I still have some gripes with a lot of the technical aspects of this film. So I want to go through, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Let's start with the premise of this movie. The premise of this movie is somewhat interesting, all right? It's a cool pitch idea. A kid who doesn't have anything, who was, basically taught to be a no one because he was born out of wedlock, strives to become powerful in any way possible, even if that includes joining a crime syndicate. I like that kind of a dynamic. It's very interesting. Totally would watch a film like that. Of course, the issue, like we've already gone through, is that the execution was absolutely horrible. And the reason I think that this movie truly fails is because the pitch is an interesting pitch, but it's supposed to be in a form of a character study. This should have been more of an analysis of why Pushpa is the way he is and what he deems as a good decision, to get to the top. This movie was not like that. This movie had that premise, but was filmed and written in the same way any standard masala movie that you would see in Indian film was filmed. This is the biggest failure of this film. If you wanted to make a masala movie, then don't focus on any cool premise, alright? Just have a stupid plot. I don't know, think about Muthu. It's just a guy who is a charioteer, and then he becomes a good guy, and then he was already a good guy, and then he beats the bad guy, and end of movie. That's because that pitch doesn't seem that cool. It's just a charioteer who gains worth. It's fine. It's whatever. You don't really. It's not as eye catching. Whereas this premise is actually interesting, and I wanted to see what they did with that premise, but instead they set it up and completely, derailed with the standard plot of any average Indian movie, which is a problem. This movie is actually very entertaining in the sense that if supposing you switch off your brain and watch this movie, like you're just like, oh, pretty pictures, cool songs, nice dance, this cinematography and all of that is really interesting because of that. You might enjoy it if you have the ability to switch off your brain for 3 hours and not think about anything that's happening on screen. This movie is for you. That said, a lot of that stuff kind of gets offset, like the cool stuff gets offset by the level of boring things that you are, seeing in the other sides of this thing, like the fight scenes, the dances. All of that stuff is completely there only in fragments, and because of the rest of the film is completely boring. It's like annoying comedic scenes, idiotic, boring narrations, like a love story that you don't care about. All of that stuff completely offsets seeing pieces of this movie that are actually good. And it's very egregious because, like, you can clearly see that this movie is so long, and that has completely derailed any ability to make it entertaining, because they have to make you sit there for 3 hours and actually like something. Here's an idea, guys. You could put some of this stuff in the sequel, because you're making a sequel. Alright, again, like I've brought this up in the entertainment value, but this is probably the best part about this film. Everything that the camera work showed was very interesting. I think my favorite was the fight scene that they had when he was basically getting rid of all of the logs before the police came, and he was like jumping on top of all of these logs and going up, and I was like, oh, that's so cool looking. Oh my god, I love that. And then I also liked the scale of all of the dances and the music videos that they had in this movie. All of those aspects of this film were actually absolutely amazing. I have no gripes with them whatsoever. And the reason why I say this is because I genuinely think that this is something that you might appreciate if you like that kind of thing. The issue is that, again, this is only something that a 3-year-old or anybody with the IQ of a 3-year-old would be able to appreciate, because you're just like, the rest of the plot is completely alright, it's all garbage, it's awful, you hate everyone, and then you have this like beacon of hope with like a one music video that happens in between the whole movie. This is not how you do good filmmaking. This kind of sucks because I think the actors are all doing a good job. All of these actors, whether it's Allu Arjun, Fahad Fazil, or anyone, have all been in good movies. They have shown that they have the ability to act. It's kind of saddening to see all of these people really try and in the process be forced to work with a script that is completely awful. Even if their actings are all good, even if supposing they all do a good job in representing, the character that has been given to them, the characters are so awful and you hate them so much by the end of the movie that it barely even matters. It's so slimy, and I just don't like anyone. The worst part about this, actually, for me, was that I feel like a lot of the female characters in this movie are weirdly even though they've been given absolutely no, like extraneous character development, because almost all of them, I think except for the mom character, get their like top taken off at some point. Like, do you remember when that like lady, she just like, like her top fell off after she tried to kill her husband? It's like, why are you doing this? We don't need this. It's very unfortunate, and I hate everyone at the end of it as a result. I'm not a native Telugu speaker. I can understand it based on context, but frankly, I still need subtitles to understand it. So I am not going to talk much about the language or anything like that. What I am going to talk about is the narrator. Now, from my understanding, this movie was supposed to be told in a format of an old wives' tale. Basically, it was supposed to be in that way that, you sit down in a circle with all of your cousins and your grandmom tells you a story. I think that was the intent, like the framework that they wanted for this film. The issue is that the narrator they hired is so boring when he talks about anything. It's very frustrating to see this man stumble over, plot points that are so obviously would be interesting with anybody who cared, but they decided to give it to this moron who doesn't know what the hell he was doing. I don't understand. I wish they had given someone else the opportunity to do it, and maybe possibly I might have liked the narrator in this movie. Maybe. Right. This is the part I think the movie truly failed because it wasn't even able to highlight the cool camera work that they had in the movie. The editor, I don't know who edited this video, but whoever the you are, you failed. I hate you, alright? And you are one of the reasons why this movie made me really angry. You used title cards to introduce characters. And you didn't even do that consistently. You did it for like a few seconds because you thought it was a funny gag, I guess, on your student film project. And you were just like, oh, okay, that makes perfect sense over here, so let's just put it in. And it's like, no, if you're trying to emulate a cartoon, then go all the way and emulate a cartoon all the way. Make your entire film goofy and stupid, and I wouldn't hate it as much. But you didn't do that, did you? You did that for pieces of the film, and then the rest of the movie you were like, oh, look how cool this serious, plot line about a mob boss is. You can't do that. Pick one side. Don't have like this insane number of crazy things happening and then suddenly flit back to, oh, we need to do something funny, I guess, for 5 seconds. And don't even get me started on, the idiot, the absolute moron who did the beginning animation. Who the hell did this? Just look at this. Look at this horror. It's so bad. I swear to God, if supposing they had hired that stupid Quaaludes narrator and put him in front of, I don't know, a video of a RuneScape animation from 2006, not even the modern RuneScape, the old school RuneScape. If you had done that, I promise you would have gotten a better animation out of whoever the 5-year-old they had with the Macintosh 1 out there making this brilliant animation. Like, did you hire a 5th grader? I can't. I can't. I hate it. I hate it so much. I hate it. Okay, alright, that's it. I can't take any more of this movie. It was terrible, and I'm sorry, and but I honestly can't give this movie more than like a 2 out of 10, because straight up almost everything about this movie is terrible. Hopefully I'll like the sequel, because at the very least at the moment, the way things stand, I enjoy the dynamic between the hero and the villain. But you never know. If supposing it's the same writer and director, he might end up doing the same and pissing me off again. So, anyway, sorry for making you all wait for so long, but I had to film this review, and I guess I was inspired again. Be sure to like and subscribe to our channel, and looking forward to when Basit can finally get out of his, university stuff so he can actually film with me. Miss you. Bye.